The Council's decision, the crystalline dome of Nexus Prime, stretched endlessly above the Galactic Council chambers, its surface shimmering with the light of distant stars. Representatives from across the galaxy had gathered for what many considered the most important session in decades. The air itself seemed to vibrate with tension as hundreds of different species filled the massive amphitheater, their voices creating a symphony of clicks, hisses, and harmonics that would have been impossible for any single species to understand without universal translators. Ambassador Kelthan of the Saurian Collective rose from his seat, his scales catching the ambient light as he moved. Standing nearly 8 feet tall with emerald green skin and eyes that held the wisdom of centuries, he commanded attention merely by existing. The Saurians were among the oldest members of the Galactic Council, their species having achieved space travel when most others were still discovering fire. When Kelthan spoke, even the most arrogant species usually listened. Honored colleagues, Kelthan began, his voice carrying the weight of authority across the chamber. We gather today to discuss a matter that will shape the future of our galaxy. The species known as humans have achieved faster than light travel. They have sent representatives requesting permission to establish colonies in the Outer Rim territories. Some of you see this as a simple administrative matter. I am here to warn you that it is anything but simple. A ripple of dismissive laughter echoed through parts of the chamber. Chancellor Vorthok of the Zephyrian Hive Collective clicked his mandibles in what passed for amusement among his kind. The insectoid leader stood on 6 legs, his exoskeleton gleaming black with patches of gold that indicated his high rank within. The hive structure. Unlike species that valued individual thought, the Zephyrians operated as a collective consciousness, making decisions through shared mental processes that other species found unsettling. Ambassador Kelthan speaks of warnings, Vorthok said, his voice carrying the harmonic undertones of his species. But what threat could possibly come from mammals who only achieved spaceflight 50 years ago? The collective has reviewed their technological capabilities. Their weapons are crude, their ships are slow, their social structure is chaotic and inefficient. They pose no more threat to galactic stability than a swarm of dust mites. The chamber erupted in various sounds of agreement from multiple species. The Chronari delegation thumped their massive fists against their chest plates, creating a thunderous rhythm that expressed their approval. The ethereal luminari pulsed with colors that indicated amusement, their translucent forms shifting through shades of blue and green that danced like living rainbows. But Kelthan was not finished. He activated a holographic display that filled the center of the chamber with 3-dimensional images. The first showed Earth, a blue and white marble, spinning peacefully in space. The second showed human settlements, spreading across their home planet like intricate networks of light. The third showed something that made several species lean forward with interest: human warfare. Look closely at how they fight, Kelthan said, his voice cutting through the noise. Most species develop weapons for hunting, then adapt them for warfare. Humans did the opposite. They developed warfare, then adapted it for everything else. They have been in a state of constant conflict for their entire recorded history. They have never known true peace. Dr. Moralith, the Council's chief xenobiologist, materialized beside the display. Her silicon-based form shifted and flowed like liquid metal, constantly changing shape as she processed information. The Crystari were living computers, capable of analyzing vast amounts of data simultaneously. When she spoke, her voice carried the absolute certainty of calculated facts. The ambassador speaks truth, Dr. Moralith said. her form solidifying into a more humanoid shape for the benefit of the biological species present. I have studied human behavioral patterns for the past decade. Their psychological profile is unprecedented. They possess a trait we have never encountered in any other species. They become more dangerous when threatened, not less. Most intelligent species develop risk aversion as a survival mechanism. Humans develop risk-taking. She gestured to the holographic display, which now showed human innovations throughout history. Observe their technological progression. When faced with obstacles, they do not find ways around them. They find ways through them. When their flying machines were shot down, they built better ones. When their cities were destroyed, they built them stronger. When their weapons failed, they invented new ones. They have never encountered a problem they accepted as unsolvable. Trade Minister Xylov, representing the gaseous consortium, expanded his form to indicate his desire to speak. As a being composed entirely of controlled atmospheric pressure, he had no physical form in the traditional sense, appearing instead as a shimmering column of colored gases contained within a specialized environmental suit. His species had built their civilization around commerce, viewing every interaction through the lens of potential profit. The learned doctor speaks of human adaptability as if it were a threat, Xylov said, his voice emanating from speakers embedded in his containment suit. But adaptability is exactly what makes a species valuable as a trading partner. These humans have resources we need: rare minerals, biological compounds, and manufacturing capabilities. Their very aggression could be useful. Many of our member species require protection from pirates and raiders. Humans could serve as excellent mercenaries. The chamber buzzed with renewed discussion. Several species began calculating the potential profits from human contact. The merchant princes of the Alkari Syndicate were already discussing trade routes, their tentacles dancing as they communicated through a complex series of color changes and chemical releases. The tech-focused Andromedans were showing interest in human engineering capabilities, their mechanical bodies clicking and worry as they processed the implications. But Ambassador Kelthan raised his hand for silence, his expression growing more serious. Minister Xylov, you speak of using humans as mercenaries. This reveals a fundamental misunderstanding of their nature. They are not tools to be employed. They are not problems to be solved. They are a force of nature that, once unleashed, cannot be controlled. He activated a new section of the holographic display, showing recent human activities in their home system. In the past 50 years, they have established colonies on 6 different worlds within their system. They have built orbital habitats that house millions of their people. They have developed self-sustaining ecosystems in environments that would kill most species. And they have done all of this while maintaining their capacity for warfare. The images shifted to show human military installations hidden among what appeared to be peaceful colonies. Space stations that looked like research facilities revealed weapon systems that could threaten ships much larger than anything humans had built. Mining operations that seemed focused on resource extraction were actually producing materials for advanced weapons research. They do not separate their civilian and military technologies, Kelthan continued. Every human settlement is a potential fortress. Every human colony is a potential military base. Every human research station is a potential weapons development facility. They have militarized their entire society without appearing to do so. Chancellor Vorthok's mandibles clicked in irritation. Even if this is true, what of it? They request permission to establish colonies in 3 frontier systems: Kepler 438, Gliese 667, and Proxima Centauri b, These are remote locations with minimal strategic value. The systems contain no established civilizations, no valuable resources, and no important trade routes. If they wish to waste their time and resources on worthless rocks, why should we care? Dr. Moraleth's form shifted, taking on a more solid appearance as she prepared to deliver uncomfortable facts. Chancellor Vorthok, your collective has miscalculated. These systems are not worthless. Kepler 438 contains substantial deposits of quantum crystals, necessary for faster-than-light communication. Gliese 667 has 3 planets with conditions suitable for agricultural development, potentially feeding billions. Proxima Centauri b sits along the most direct route to the Andromeda trade corridors. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. These were not random choices made by primitive explorers. These were strategic selections made by beings who understood galactic geography better than most council members had realized. Furthermore, Dr. Moraleth continued, their request specifically mentions unlimited expansion rights within designated zones. This is not a request for 3 planets. This is a request for 3 entire systems with the legal right to expand to any planets, moons, or asteroids within those systems. They are not asking for homes. They are asking for territory. Ambassador Kelthon nodded grimly. And they have made this request after studying our laws and treaties for decades. They understand our legal system better than many species who have been members for centuries. This is not the action of primitive mammals stumbling into space. This is the action of strategic planners who have been preparing for this moment. For generations, the debate that followed lasted for hours. Species after species rose to voice their opinions, their concerns, their hopes, and their fears. The bellicose kingdoms advocated for outright rejection of the human request, viewing them as potential competitors for military dominance. The peaceful collective argued for acceptance, believing that contact with galactic civilization would moderate human aggression. The neutral confederacy suggested a middle path, allowing limited human expansion under strict supervision. But the most influential voices belonged to the economic powers. The merchant princes spoke of profit opportunities. The industrial complexes discussed manufacturing partnerships. The resource extraction guilds evaluated the potential for new mining operations. For these species, the question was not whether humans were dangerous, but whether they were profitable. As the debate continued, Ambassador Kelthon found himself increasingly isolated. His warnings about human adaptability were dismissed as paranoia. His concerns about human militarization were brushed aside as irrelevant. His predictions about human expansion were laughed at as impossible. Finally, the vote was called. The results were overwhelming. 847 species in favor of granting the human request. 23 opposed, and 45 abstentions. The frontier systems would be opened to human colonization, subject to standard galactic law and regular inspections to ensure compliance with peace treaties. Chancellor Vorthak's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. The decision is made. The humans will be granted their request. They will be allowed to establish colonies in the 3 designated systems. However, they will be limited to those systems only. Any attempt to expand beyond the agreed boundaries will result in immediate sanctions. Any development of weapons beyond defensive capabilities will result in military intervention. Any threat to established galactic order will result in their complete removal from those systems. As the council session ended and representatives began to disperse, Ambassador Kelthon remained in his seat, staring at the holographic display. That still showed human settlements spreading across their home system. Dr. Moralith materialized beside him, her form shifting nervously. "You tried to warn them," she said softly. "The data supports your conclusions. Human expansion patterns show exponential growth. Their technological development shows accelerating innovation. Their military capabilities show increasing sophistication. The Council has made an error." Kelthan's scales darkened with concern. "Dr. Moralith, I have studied galactic history for 3 centuries. I have seen species rise and fall. I have watched empires expand and collapse. But I have never seen a species like humans. They do not follow the patterns we understand. They do not behave according to our models. They are something entirely new." He stood slowly, his ancient bones creaking with the weight of years and worry. "The Council believes they have granted humans permission to establish 3 small colonies. What they have actually done is given humans legal access to galactic space. And once humans are in space, with access to our technology and our trade routes, there will be no stopping them." Dr. Moralith's form solidified into a more stable configuration. "What do you believe will happen?" Kelthan looked out at the stars, visible through the crystalline dome. "I believe that within a generation, humans will have spread throughout the galaxy. I believe they will have adapted our technology in ways we never imagined. I believe they will have formed alliances we never expected. And I believe they will have become the dominant species in known space." He turned to leave, then paused. "And I believe that when that happens, the species who voted to allow their expansion will blame everyone except themselves for the consequences." As the lights dimmed in the empty council chamber, the holographic display continued to show human settlements spreading across their home system like a growing network of light. The expansion was slow but steady, methodical but relentless, and somewhere in the depths of space, human ships were already moving toward their new territories, carrying with them the dreams, ambitions, and unstoppable determination of a species that had never learned to accept limitations. The Council had made their decision. The humans had been given their chance, and the galaxy would never be the same. The price of underestimation. 6 months had passed since the Galactic Council's decision, and the emergency session convened in the same crystalline dome felt like a funeral. Representatives who had voted with confidence now sat in stunned silence as reports poured in from across the galaxy. The humans had not simply established colonies in their 3 designated systems. They had transformed those systems into something that threatened the very foundation of galactic civilization. Ambassador Kelthan stood at the center of the chamber, his emerald scales now bearing the grey tinge of vindication without satisfaction. The holographic display around him showed a galaxy map that had been completely redrawn in just 6 months. Where once there had been 3 empty frontier systems, there now existed a network of human activity that spanned dozens of star systems, and included alliances with species that had never been considered significant players in galactic politics. "Honored colleagues," Kelthan began, his voice carrying none of the warmth it had held 6 months earlier. "You asked for this emergency session to address the human situation. I stand before you now not to say I told you so, but to help you understand the magnitude of what your vote has unleashed." Chancellor Vorthek's mandibles clicked nervously, his once confident demeanor replaced by the agitation of a hive mind struggling to process unexpected variables. "The reports we have received contain obvious errors. No species could achieve what humans claim to have accomplished in such a short time. The collective demands explanation." Dr. Moralith materialized beside the display, her silicon-based form shifting rapidly as she processed vast amounts of incoming data. Chancellor Vorthok, I have verified every report personally. The humans have not only met their projected expansion goals, they have exceeded them by factors we previously considered impossible. She gestured to the holographic display, which now showed detailed images of human activities across their designated systems. In the Kepler 438 system, humans have established mining operations on 17 different asteroids, 3 planetary surfaces, and 2 artificial habitats. They have extracted enough quantum crystals to build a communication network that spans their entire territory. More significantly, they have shared this technology with the Therosian Mining Collective, a species we had previously considered too primitive for galactic membership. The chamber buzzed with alarmed discussion. The Therosians were a rock-based species that had been rejected for council membership decades earlier due to their limited technological development. They were considered useful only for basic manual labor in environments too dangerous for more advanced species. Asterisk. The humans did not simply trade with the Therosians, Dr. Moralith continued. They recognized that a species evolved to live in asteroid environments would be ideal partners for space-based mining operations. They provided the Therosians with advanced technology in exchange for exclusive mining rights and military cooperation. The Therosians now operate the most efficient mining fleet in known space, and they are completely loyal to human interests. Trade Minister Xylov expanded, his gaseous form in agitation. This violates standard first contact protocols. New species are supposed to be introduced to galactic civilization gradually. They are not supposed to be given advanced technology without council approval. The humans have contaminated the natural development of a primitive species. Ambassador, Kelthan's scales darkened with what might have been amusement. Minister Zelov, you speak of contamination as if it were accidental. The humans studied our laws for decades before making their expansion request. They understand that any species they ally with becomes their responsibility under galactic law. They are not contaminating primitive species. They are building an empire. The holographic display shifted to show the Gliese 667 system, where human agricultural development had transformed 3 barren worlds into garden paradises. But the images revealed something far more sophisticated than simple farming. The humans had created ecosystems that were completely self-sustaining, with every element carefully balanced to support not just human life, but the life of dozens of other species. The agricultural worlds are not just feeding human colonies, Dr. Moralith explained. They are feeding the Verdani tree shepherds, the aquatic collective, and the symbiotic hive clusters. Species that were struggling to maintain their populations due to food shortages now have access to unlimited resources. In return, they have pledged their support to human expansion efforts. The Verdani representative, a towering tree-like being, whose root system extended deep into the chamber floor, rustled her leaves in what passed for speech among her kind. The humans offered us something no other species has provided in 10,000 years: hope. Our worlds were dying. Our people were starving. The humans gave us life. Chancellor Vorthak's mandibles clicked frantically. This is impossible. Number species develops such complex agricultural systems in 6 months. The collective demands to know how they achieved this. Dr. Moralith's form shifted, taking on the appearance of a detailed technical schematic. They did not develop it in 6 months. They adapted it from technology they had already developed on their home world. Humans have been practicing terraforming for over a century. They have been developing sustainable agriculture for even longer. When they requested access to galactic space, They were not asking for the opportunity to learn. They were asking for the opportunity to implement systems they had already perfected. The display changed again, showing the Proxima Centauri B system, where human development had created something that made every military specialist in the chamber lean forward with concern. The single planet had been transformed into a fortress world surrounded by defensive installations that could protect not just the human colony, but any ship that sought refuge there. The humans have created a sanctuary, Dr. Moralith continued. Any species facing persecution, any group seeking protection, any individual fleeing oppression can find safety in human territory. They have extended this protection to the refugee collective, the exile kingdoms, and the scattered tribes. Dozens of species that were considered outcasts or undesirables now have a place to call home. The implications were staggering. The humans had not simply established colonies. They had created a completely new power structure in the galaxy, one based on mutual benefit rather than domination, on cooperation rather than competition, on shared prosperity rather than exploitation. Captain Sarah Chen, the human representative, stood to address the council. She was a woman of medium height with short black hair and eyes that held the confidence of someone who had spent her life exploring the unknown. Unlike the ornate robes and ceremonial armor worn by most galactic representatives, she wore a simple military uniform that bore the insignia of the human colonial authority. "Honored Council," she began, her voice carrying the crisp authority of someone accustomed to command. "I understand that many of you are concerned about the pace of human expansion. I want to assure you that everything we have done is within the legal framework established by this council. We have not violated any treaties. We have not exceeded any agreed-upon boundaries. We have simply been more efficient than you expected." Chancellor Vorthek's mandibles clicked accusingly. "Have exceeded the spirit of our agreement. You were granted permission to establish colonies, not to build an empire. You were authorized to extract resources, not to militarize entire systems. You were allowed to trade with established species, not to elevate primitive ones. Captain." Chen smiled, and there was something in that smile that made several representatives shift uncomfortably in their seats. "Chancellor Vorthok, I have reviewed the agreement your council approved. It grants humans unlimited expansion rights within designated zones. It authorizes us to establish all necessary infrastructure for sustained colonization. It permits us to engage in trade and diplomacy with any species we encounter. We have done exactly what you gave us permission to do." Commander Marcus Webb, the human military advisor, stepped forward. He was a tall man with graying hair and the bearing of someone who had spent decades in combat. His presence alone seemed to shift the atmosphere in the chamber, reminding everyone that the humans were not simply explorers and traders, but warriors. "The Council seems surprised by our military capabilities," Webb said, his voice carrying the weight of experience. "But we never hid our nature. We told you we were a species that had known conflict for our entire history. We told you we were prepared to defend our interests. We told you we would not be easy to control. You chose to ignore these warnings." The holographic display shifted to show human military installations, and the assembled representatives saw technology that was clearly beyond anything they had expected. Ships that could outmaneuver established galactic vessels, weapons that could penetrate shields thought to be impenetrable, defensive systems that could protect entire planets from invasion. "How did you develop such advanced military technology so quickly?" demanded General Cortex of the bellicose kingdoms. his reptilian form bristling with weapons that seemed primitive compared to what the humans had achieved. Engineer Lisa Torres, the human technology specialist, stepped forward. She was a young woman with bright eyes and hands that seemed to constantly move as she spoke, as if she were always building something in her mind. General Cortex, we didn't develop this technology quickly. We developed it over decades of careful planning and preparation. The difference is that we developed it in secret, while you developed yours in public. She gestured to the display, which now showed human research facilities hidden within what appeared to be civilian settlements. Every human colony is also a research station. Every human habitat is also a manufacturing facility. Every human trade ship is also a mobile laboratory. We have been preparing for galactic contact for generations, and we have been developing technology specifically designed to give us advantages in a galactic environment. The chamber erupted in angry discussion. Representatives who had voted to allow human expansion now realized they had not simply granted permission to a primitive species seeking to expand. They had given legal authority to a species that had been preparing for conquest for decades. But Captain Chen was not finished. The Council seems to believe that our success is somehow threatening to galactic stability. I would like to present a different perspective. Since humans began operations in our designated systems, piracy in the Outer Rim has decreased by 60%. Food shortages among refugee populations have been eliminated. Military conflicts between minor species have decreased by 40%. We have brought stability to a region that was previously considered lawless. Ambassador Kelthan's scales shifted to a deeper green, indicating his growing understanding of the situation. Captain Chen, you speak of stability as if it were your goal. But stability is not the same as control. You have not simply improved conditions in the Outer Rim. You have made those conditions dependent on human support. Any species that opposes you now faces not just human retaliation, but the loss of protection, resources, and trade that human alliance provides. Captain Chen nodded respectfully. Ambassador Kaochong, you understand the situation better than most. We have indeed created a system where cooperation with humans is more beneficial than opposition. But this is not coercion. This is incentive. We have given species reasons to work with us rather than against us. Dr. Moraleth's form shifted, displaying new data that made the assembled representatives lean forward with concern. The humans have also been monitoring galactic communication networks. They have been studying our technology, our trade routes, our military capabilities, and our political structures. They know more about us than we know about them. The implications were terrifying. The humans had not simply been establishing colonies. They had been conducting intelligence operations on a galactic scale, gathering information that could be used to predict and counter any action the Council might take against them. Furthermore, Dr. Moraleth continued, human expansion is accelerating. Analysis of their current growth patterns suggests that within 5 years, they will have established a presence in over 100 systems. Within 10 years, they will have alliances with more species than the Galactic Council itself. Within 20 years, they will be the dominant power in known space. The chamber fell silent as the full scope of the situation became clear. The Council had not simply made an error in judgment. They had handed control of the galaxy to a species that had been preparing for this moment for generations. Chancellor Vorthak's mandibles clicked desperately. This cannot be allowed to continue. The collective demands immediate action to contain human expansion. Military intervention must be authorized before they become too powerful to stop. Captain Chun's smile widened, and for the first time, it carried a hint of the predatory nature that had made humans the apex predators of their home world. Chancellor Vorthok, I would be very careful about making threats. You see, we have been preparing for this conversation as well. Commander Webb activated a new section of the holographic display, showing the current positions of human military forces. Ships that had been thought to be civilian transports were revealed to be disguised warships. Colonies that had been thought to be peaceful settlements were revealed to be military installations. Trade routes that had been thought to be commercial ventures were revealed to be supply lines for a war machine that spanned dozens of systems. Any military action against human territory will be considered an act of war, Webb said calmly. And we are prepared for war in ways that no galactic species has ever been prepared. We have allies who will fight with us. We have resources that will sustain us. We have technology that will protect us. And we have a determination that will never allow us to surrender. The council chamber fell into chaos as representatives realized that their attempt to contain human expansion had already failed before. It began. The humans had been preparing for conflict from the moment they had requested permission to establish colonies. Every human action had been calculated to create a situation where military intervention would be impossible. Ambassador. Kelthan rose slowly from his seat, his ancient eyes filled with a mixture of respect and resignation. Captain Chen, your species has achieved something unprecedented in galactic history. You have conquered the galaxy without firing a shot. You have created an empire without declaring war. You have become the dominant power without anyone realizing it was happening. Captain Chen nodded acknowledgement. Ambassador Kelthan, we learned from studying galactic history. We saw how species that relied on military conquest were eventually defeated by coalitions of their enemies. We saw how species that relied on economic domination were eventually undermined by their competitors. We chose a different path. And what path was that? Kelthan asked. We chose to become indispensable, Captain Chen replied. Every species that works with us becomes stronger. Every species that opposes us becomes weaker. We have created a system where cooperation with humans is the most logical choice for any species that wants to survive and prosper. As the emergency session ended and representatives began to disperse, the reality of the situation settled over the Galactic Council like a shroud. They had ignored the warnings about humanity, and now they were paying the price. The galaxy would never be the same, and the age of human dominance had only just begun. The question was no longer whether humans would control the galaxy. The question was whether the established powers would adapt to the new reality or be swept aside by species that had learned to thrive under human leadership. The warnings had been ignored, the price was being paid, and the galaxy was learning that underestimating humanity was a mistake that civilizations could not afford to make. Asterisk.